Okay.
Countdown?
Yep.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, Brianna.
My name is Avery Jackman.
My name is Safa Ali Day.
My name is Matthew Dawkins.
My name's Susie.
My name is Aaron Perry.
Welcome back to the Youth Leaders Lounge, hearing from tomorrow's CEOs today. This is our final episode, and today we're going to be talking about something that I identify as, which is being Gen Z in the workplace.
By working hard in a fractured world, you guys have left us a terrible society. We're having to rebuild and reimagine everything, including personal and professional settings.
Yeah.
That's working 24/7. Think of what it does to your nervous system. We are literally, we're not the laziest.
And so my question for my wonderful panel is this. This comes from an article that states that 32% of Gen Z feels and believes that they are the hardest working generation. 36% think that they have it the hardest, and 42% feel that college didn't prepare them enough to enter the workplace. Critics have argued that Gen Z is entitled and do not like to work hard. What is your response to those that will use stats like this to prove their point? You want to start?
Personally, I think that the idea that Gen Z is entitled is one that gets thrown around a lot without actually thinking about what we're dealing with in this generation. Because while I can't really speak to how, if we are working harder, I can say that we had to work harder to be in the positions that we are today. Because it's very clear that we need more education every single year. We're even in a time right now where it kind of feels like even an undergrad degree isn't enough and you need to get grad school. And I think that over time it is becoming harder and harder to get these jobs. And yeah, I'm biased because I am Gen Z, but I personally don't think we're entitled. I think we're dealing with a lot of issues in our world today that did not exist in prior generations. One, for example, is the rising issues of the climate crisis. I mean, a lot of these things pretty much did not exist for previous generations. And that makes it a lot harder to live. Like things like the hopelessness of a lot of the issues we're dealing with in the world today make it a lot harder to keep going. On top of the fact that when you add so many tools to the workplace that are obviously making it easier to work, like the internet, email, these things make it easier to do work, but it also means that it's a lot harder for us to disconnect. It's a lot harder for us to actually not cover all of these bases. I mean, like I think about what must it have been like to be working in like the 70s when email did not exist and you were kind of just left to your devices. I mean, that's but I think that we have a lot going on in the world today that we're kind of forced to juggle with our work life that is already hard enough. Like it is already hard enough achieving our career when it feels like every single Indeed post is looking for 10 years of experience, a graduate degree. And how would I have any of those things based on where I am in my life? And it just feels like a lot of the time we are working harder because there aren't just a lot of opportunities that are open to us in that respect. And it's not that we don't want to work hard. I think it's that there's not a lot of opportunities to do so based on the qualifications that we have. And a lot of the time, having a post-secondary degree can be a privilege. Having things like 10 years of experience, community experience, is an incredible privilege sometime. And if you don't have that, a lot of the jobs just kind of say, sorry, sucks to be you.
Yeah.
I guess we'll look for the better candidate here. And obviously you're going to find that person, but why aren't we focusing on the fact that this job is not designed to be accessible to the group of people you're trying to reach?
I'll add on to that as well, in terms of some of the job descriptions as well, are not offering enough compensation and support for what they're asking. And the entitlement comes from the fact that we are literally saying that is not enough. And my response to that also is, would it be so bad to want more? Like my question, like I don't think I get like frustrated about it because I'm just like, I don't understand why the idea of our generation simply asking for fair compensation, for the ability for you to look at me as a human being and say, can you support me in my life, at this company, and that comes off as entitled. Like that's just where my mind kind of goes sometimes, because they'll be like, oh, well, Gen Z's come to work with and they expect this, but they don't even have any experience. And I'm just like, we're just simply asking for a job. And sometimes you guys are not even really providing enough space even to really achieve that. So that's just my thoughts on what you just said.
Entitlement honestly just kind of feels like their way of interpreting knowing your worth, which we have been taught very much in this generation of knowing your work and knowing your value, and to kind of be flipped around and say, no, you're actually asking for too much now. It's kind of like, okay, then what are we doing here? Because we're now taking the initiative to actually understand this is what my time and energy are worth. And if you're not matching that, then I'm sorry, but I can't do that. But it's a whole generation thinking that way cannot be the problem. Especially if we are moving into the future, you can't change that. No matter how much you can make fun of it or say that or belittle us for saying these things, in 10 or 20 years, we are going to be running the country with that mentality. So at the end of the day, you kind of have to accept the entitlement that comes with that if you perceive it as entitlement.
At the same time, though, it's funny that you mentioned how generations will still progress with their thinking. So why aren't the systems doing that as well? AKA the education system. Why am I still reading up on the same things or not even being taught about the same things that could currently affect my critical thinking of what's happening nowadays? On top of the economic crisis, education crisis and such like that. The fact that we're going more backwards, banning certain things rather than pushing forward. Right. And there's recently a new bill that was passed that that jobs now have to showcase how much people are going to be earning from a job when you're applying for that job.
Applying for a job without knowing what it pays, something that happens frequently.
A lot of employees go through the interview process and they get at the end and they find out that the salary is a fraction of what they were expecting.
Now the Ontario government is proposing to make that illegal by requiring employers to state the salary range up front.
God forbid you get that offer of a job. Sometimes it doesn't pay enough to pay the bills or pays less than the one you already have.
And I'm like, but why is it now?
Yeah.
Why in 2023 are we not, why are we now just looking into seeing, my words are getting fumbled. Why in 2023 are we now just looking at the salary range when that should have been given from the top, from the get-go? And if companies and large employers are saying, we're equal, we tend to give this, we want to be loyal. So be loyal with the fact and your truthfulness, and be loyal about who's getting what and what's happening.
Like, why is it a secret?
Yeah.
Like, why am I being surprised at the end of the interview after with the offer letter? And it's like, I have seen this too, where it's determined based off your skill set and value. So they'll set a base salary, but it's based off how they then think what you deserve, which I think is so bizarre to me, because it's just like, well, if you think I deserve this job, I deserve what you should pay me. And I don't like this idea as well of this having to negotiate. It's like, I don't feel like I should be having to fight for what I deserve just because you want to see if I'll fight for it, as opposed to just seeing my value intrinsically. It seems like it's just they're making it more challenging, just because I don't know why they're doing that. But yeah, I'll throw it to someone else, perhaps. Maybe Susie?
Yeah. I was just listening to everything. Yeah, I really feel for Gen Z. I think we're in a rock and a hard place. Like, Gen Z is a generation that's also, we're in a race with technology. Like, we're always being told that we could be replaced by AI. Like, that's something that causes a lot of pressure. I think because the whole entitled label feels really inaccurate, because I think for a long time people equated just self-advocacy with complaining, and it's not the same. So just because Gen Z is more vocal doesn't mean that what we have to say is invalid. And I think that some older generations haven't made sense of what that means.
Critics have argued that Gen Z is entitled and do not like to work hard. What is your response to that? And
I would say try working hard in a fractured world. You guys have left us a terrible society. We're having to rebuild and reimagine everything, including in personal and professional settings.
Yeah.
That's working 24/7. Think of what it does to your nervous system. We are literally, we're not the laziest. We're probably the most hardworking, no shade.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that most of us have accepted the fact that we would never own a home.
Yeah.
Like, that is something that they'll look at you and they'll be like, so when are you going to buy property? And I'm like, in what world can I afford to buy property when you don't even, when salary and wage increases are not even going up? Like, and look at the property market right now in Toronto. Like, it's, be for real. You know, like, you kind of have
But
to just be
even
for
saying
real.
that is like such a that's such a class-based standpoint. Like
It
to say
is.
like, I want to buy a house. There's been people who've been displaced and unhoused for decades in the city,
Yep.
and that was never it's such a privileged place to say that. Like I think that what's happening since post-pandemic is that there's just been a huge equalizer, and we're all feeling it super deeply.
Yes,
Unfortunately, I think Gen Z is getting like the blowback of a lot of that.
absolutely.
Personal finance expert Rubina Ahmed Haq says the pandemic has been tough on younger generations.
They've been on the sidelines watching the housing market go up. They might have lost their job during the pandemic, so they've had to go on emergency assistance. And I would believe that most people who graduate from university were not, planning on having to go on EI.
Paul Kershaw, founder of Generation Squeeze, a nonprofit organization advocating for young adults, says the findings are not surprising.
Younger people are going to school more to land jobs that pay less. They face way higher housing prices, and they are inheriting larger government and environmental debts.
Like, try growing up like every generation has their, issues, but try growing up in a, like you said, an already developed space and world where you start to realize that everything is not what it seems to be and it's all broken. And it's kind of like, okay, what can I do to rebuild, but also making sure that the next generation doesn't have to feel that. And I feel for the next generation because they're going to have to keep continuously see that. And there's been a study that says real change won't be seen for another 50 years. But I know Gen Z is the start. So, yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Matthew? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, I've been thinking and really honing into the part of your question that talked about the fact that Gen Zs, we're saying that the education system doesn't prepare us for the working world. And to be honest, I think it's absolutely true. But I think the problem is that nothing can prepare you for the working world. And I think we've all kind of talked about the problems with that. We talked about the fact that you have to step in and salaries are being hidden from us and then you have to negotiate and then it's the 9 to 5. And we talked earlier in another episode about the lack of benefits and how people aren't treated as humans. I don't think anything can prepare us for that. And I don't think the problem is that the education system is sure, it's not perfect by any means, but I think Gen Zs come out of the education system smarter. I think we consume a lot of information. We're able to digest amazingly and think critically. I think this panel here is a great demonstration of that. I just think that the work world is so broken and the corporate structure isn't fit for the way that we need to be thinking and the way that we need to be moving forward as a society. So I think that's where the problem really is. The capitalist world that we live in today, nothing can prepare you for that. And that's a bad sign.
Period.
That part.
Absolutely. And I think with that, as Matthew summarized, there were a lot of amazing topics that we talked about in this series. My advice for those that are listening, if you're in positions of leadership, I highly implore you to listen to the opinions of these young, beautiful people here beside me. Because as I mentioned before, we are the future. It's important to invest and foster the future before you because the world needs to get better. I can't really, summarize that in any other way. Something needs to change. Something needs to happen because we're going into a very dangerous place of hopelessness. There are a lot of people right now in the world who just feel like nothing's going to work. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing's going to change. But you, being in a position of leadership, have the opportunity to do that. You have the opportunity to make a difference. Be that change. Whether that means taking what you learn here from these last 6 episodes, whether that means talking to your employees and having more open discussions about how you can make your workplace a better, safer space. Take the time to invest into the future of the world around you. This has been the Youth Leaders Lounge, hearing from tomorrow's CEOs today. My name is Avery Jackman.
My name is Safa Ali Day.
My name is Matthew Dawkins.
My name's Susie.
My name is Aaron Perry.
And thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Goodbye.
That is a wrap on the
Youth Leaders
Lounge. Yes! We did it. Y'all did it.